You're welcome back to Nationwide. Now, we all know that adjusting to retirement can be difficult at times, and I would imagine that if you're making the transition from working in the army to civilian life, there could be extra challenges. Many people, I'm sure, miss the order and discipline of working in the military, and others probably miss the close bonds that you would form with other soldiers, particularly if you've served on missions overseas with the UN, for instance. Well, now, the Defence Forces are determined that veterans should still feel part of the Army family, and to that end they've started an initiative. It's called the Friday Club, where former soldiers are invited to return to barracks, to socialise, to have a cup of tea, and also to find out some information that might benefit them. Recently, Helen McInerney met up with some veterans and joined them at one of their monthly gatherings.
Des Keegan is a retired member of the Irish Defence Forces. He's on his way to Collins Barracks in Cork City to meet with other Army veterans at the Friday Club, a recent initiative by the Defence Forces where veterans come into barracks to meet and to receive information about topical issues that might benefit them.
Well, the Friday Club was a great initiative because again that was brought in to have ex-soldiers meeting current soldiers, quite apart from, as I said, funerals, because normally that's the only place you meet, and it's a great forum for sitting down and having a chat. And they also use their support personnel. If any of our people have any problems with post-traumatic stress or anything at all, then they have people at our disposal, and we can avail of and talk to them. So it's a great initiative. Only started recently, but hopefully it will gather and it'll come on leaves and bounds.
Des readily admits that the Army played a huge role in his life.
Well, it sets standards of discipline. It also sets standard where it teaches you dependability on other people, and also that they're depending upon you, and you just can't leave a person down. It just doesn't come into it, irrespective of the consequences for you. You just don't leave them down. So it gives you great traits that you can carry through.
Des was into physical fitness and loved that aspect of the Army.
I done my senior NCO's course, promoted to sergeant, and in between I'd done the ranger course in '69 when they began the ranger training in Dakota. Dick Heaslip, who later became officer commanding the camp above, and he retired as a full colonel. He would be the father of Jamie Heaslip. So he was in the army that time with us, and he was the first officer commanding the Ranger Wing when it was officially opened in '79. So it was a lot of physical stuff, and I particularly loved the Ranger training side of things. It was very good.
This year is the 60th anniversary of Ireland joining the UN. Des Keegan's first mission overseas was to the Congo in 1960 with the 33rd Battalion.
Congo 3 times. That was 1960 with the 33rd, 1961 with the 35th, in 61. Got married in 62. Went to the Congo again in 63 with the 3rd Armour Squadron to Leopoldville, and then went to Cyprus in 64. So the first 4 years were pretty much travelled. And then when the Congo started in 1960, that really made the army, because it dragged it screaming and fighting into the 20th century, because our weaponry and tactics were totally antiquated. So was our radio equipment, our armour. I grew up very quickly when you're 17 in the Congo, and we lost 9 dead in the ambush in November. We lost another chap dead 2 nights later. My own CS of that unit died outside of Septis following an operation. The following year with the 35th Battalion in 61, we started out with 11 armoured cars. We lost 1 on a 1,000-mile patrol to the Angolan border rescuing a family. We lost 2 in Jadaville, but we lost 2 armoured cars in Lisbonville in the fighting that lasted 5 days as well there.
In 1979, Des was on a tour of duty in the Lebanon when the camp in Nakura came under fire. He still has a reminder from that attack.
That bullet actually went through, it penetrated, and that penetrated the bumper of the Land Rover which we had parked on the camp. went through the engine block, deflected out through the chassis, and ended up underneath the Land Rover. And that would have been the bullet. That would have been the type of bullet that was fired at it. It's steel.
And why do you keep it?
I found it under the car where it neutralised our car, and I just said I'd keep that as a souvenir just to remind me of how close you come. The billet we were behind was probably hit 200 or 300 times while we were lying behind it.
Soldiers who serve together in combat zones develop strong bonds with each other.
When you're in a combat situation, particularly overseas, and you're dependent on a person that you have never met before, but you're dependent on him and he's dependent upon you, you never lose that sense of comradeship. It's even closer than blood relations in some ways, you know. You mourn the passing the same as you mourn the passing of a family member.
Martin Casey, another Irish Army veteran, did 3 tours of duty abroad.
To be working for the UN, it's like the top of your career. You're like in the Corps, you're working with the force commander, the deputy force commander, you're with all the other contingents, and we all had to work as one. It wasn't your army, my army, this army or that army. It was the UN. You belong to the United Nations. And you always held your head up high being an Irish soldier. But the Irish soldiers were very, very respected, highly respected within Lebanon, because they were looked upon as, the guardians of the peace and the guardians of people, and they had the gift of the gab with the locals. In the army, it's like a family. That's what you call it. If you're good to the army is good to you. That's how you put it. And you're with a group of people for 6 months and you bond together. Now you might have the odd person in amongst them, but we all get on because we're all in a situation that we're away from home, we're with the United Nations Internal Force in Lebanon, and we have to act as one.
Like all Army veterans, Martin wears his medals with pride.
I earned them. One is service, which would be the first one, as we call it.
Yeah.
That would be over 15 years service.
Okay.
Yeah, and that means you did 21 years. You did over the 15 years. And then your next one is a peacekeeper's medal, which the Irish government gave us.
Okay.
And the third one then is that I served in Lebanon. Now, and the number on it states that I was there 3 times. Discipline is number 1. The reason you need discipline is that everyone will do their piece when you ask them. And if you get the chap that's fallen behind, that's where your rank then comes in. I suppose it brought discipline, understanding of other people, comradeship, and how to deal with the public.
And he says the Friday Club, where retired soldiers are invited once a month, is a very positive initiative.
I'm what's called a United Nations veteran. I'm also a member of the ONE, which is the Organisation of National Ex-Servicemen and Women, which was founded in 1950. This was back in 1950. They said they'd opened this up because soldiers had nowhere to go or nothing to do. So when they joined it, they had met their old comrades, but that was it. But they were still cut away from the barracks. But when they were brought into the barracks now, in the last few months, there's a new lease of life now there, and it's the mushroom of a massive thing to come.
I want to thank you all for the welcome you've given.
I think it's a very good idea for the lads. Now the partners there are not involved, but for the lads it's a fantastic idea, because sometimes otherwise they wouldn't meet their comrades maybe ever again, some of them. And it's very good for them, and it's something they look forward to.
While the Army veterans have welcomed the new Friday Club initiative, those currently serving say they can also learn from those who've served in the past.
We at the end of the day are a people organisation, we're a learning organisation, and they come in and learn about where we are today, but the real reason we get them in is to learn from them and their experiences. You heard some of the war stories Okay, they are war stories, and they're real stories for some of them. You met Des this morning, Des Keegan, Squadron Sergeant Des Keegan. His experience in the Congo, he related to you, and those stories are real. We want our young officers and young NCOs to learn from those.
Isn't that Friday Club a very interesting idea? And do you know what I'm thinking? Wouldn't it be lovely if companies and organisations in this country introduced something like that for their former employees? I think a lot of people would love it.